Hey, it's Drybear. Halloween has arrived in Throne and Liberty with its latest patch, bringing a brand new dungeon and tons of festivities. The new dungeon actually has more mechanics in it than I thought there would be. It was actually super fun to complete. There's like these individual segments where you have to ride into a car to try to avoid being pulled out, and you have to avoid this like chariot level kind of Dark Souls dungeon hallway where you have to avoid getting run over by a giant pumpkin. And both the boss fights inside of it are actually pretty rewarding and super fun. So I think it's worth doing. You also will get some special rewards from the dungeon, which we'll talk about in a second. So you want to make sure you're doing this every single day from the candy corns that you get, because there are some worthwhile rewards from it. But let's look at the patch notes and go through what exactly has changed with the update. They actually had a pretty significant downtime for this one as they were putting everything in, as they also did have a bunch of content. They changed up some of the locations, some of the towns in the map got updated to have their own overall. So they're celebrating Halloween in a Silicium from October 25th through November 13th. The reason for this is their login event. So you actually have a full login event where every day you log in, you're going to get some candy corn, which you can use in the dungeon to open up the chest and get the rewards. You have the new dungeon, Haunted Labyrinth, which you'll find here inside of the co-op dungeon setup. So you actually can just come here, check it out, jump into the dungeon. You can do party matchmaking, or you can just do the party board. And there honestly isn't anything that's like too out of pocket or hard to understand. I would say that there's only really a couple mechanics on the final boss that you have to understand how to do them correctly in order to finish it. But even then, it's not super hard. If you're anywhere over 1600 or 1700 eye level on this, you should be able to easily clear it with a decent group and then get the rewards at the end. They made it sure that it was easy enough for people to get through. But at the end of it, just like every other dungeon, you'll be able to get the pumpkin chest at the end, and this will require you to consume your 1 candy corn so that you can get access to this. It has a nice helmet cosmetic that you can get, some rerolls for some extra like morph stones and things like that, some cooking items and materials on top of that. You'll have a whole bunch of grow stones you can get from this chest, and you want to do this every single day because the rewards are going to stack up. Now, you should get this check-in pop-up when you log in. If you don't, it's right next to the mini-map up here in the top right. Just click check-in, and you'll have this here. Day 5, 12, 18, and 19, you'll get extra, and then every single day you log in, you'll get these candy corns, and these are your entrance tokens into the event dungeon, and you'll want to make sure you get these because you just do this every single day. There's also, you can miss days as well and be able to rectify up to 2 missed days by buying gold if you really want to. You'll be able to get through that and get these, but there's a good amount of these all the way through November 13th, so you can actually clear these out and get a good amount of rewards from the dungeon too. Plus, most of the main cities have been updated to have their own cool themes. There's like ghosts flying around, skulls on top of things, pumpkins. There's lots of Halloween lighting, especially at night. Some of this looks pretty cool. So they actually went through the extra mile to add in content changes to the game to make sure that the towns feel quite different and quite interesting compared to what they normally do. So hopefully they continue doing this for every single like event or holiday, that sort of thing, because I think it's pretty fun to have these things change per season and per update. Inside the event, you can get some cooking ingredients, fishing, cooking recipes, and currencies, as well as some just some general cosmetics for it. So you want to be completing that every single day. The shop update comes with a new Halloween cosmetic, depending on what character you have. It's kind of like this more of a latex witch looking outfit with the bones on it. So depending on your character look, you'll have this available as the Wicked Enchanter. And they also added in new Halloween weapons that are very themed and very thematic, kind of like more dark aesthetics, twisted dark colors with red glow and fire, lots of pumpkins and skulls and bat wings and things like that. So some really cool cosmetic options depending on what you're looking for. And you will have some options that go along with this. It's kind of like the old options there, but you can see these depending on which weapon you're talking about. You have a cool new cosmetic to pick up if you like. They've also updated the reset time to be Thursday for all regions. So if you've been on the cycle of knowing when the weekly reset is, just know that it has been moved to Thursday, and this will impact basically everything that's on a weekly rotation. Quests, guild quests, dimensional contract coins, sales, battle pass, seasonal events, everything that's normally on a rotation is now going to rotate on Thursday rather, so that you can kind of keep up with this. I'm guessing that maybe AGS just doesn't want to deal with having 2 games going out on Wednesdays, so maybe they just moved it so they can have 1 day dedicated to like Lost Ark, and a day dedicated to New World, and a day dedicated to to Throne and Liberty. I know there shouldn't be some overlap, but the same people that keep the servers up and do the patching will probably have to work on all games anyways, so this probably just helps them be a little bit more focused on the game for that day. They also updated some of the minimap showing, so it's going to show player guild and friendly guilds, party members, and friendly top-ranked players on your minimap. They've increased some of the areas for PvP in the conflict field bosses. Some bosses, like Mordecai specifically, had a really tiny battle area, which meant that it was not only super laggy, but also very tough for some builds in PvP to fight through that. So for the PvP area, for Mordecai, Chernobog, Talus, Grand Alon, and Adentis have all been increased in size, so you get a little bit more room to play. They increased the timer for conflict boss reward drops. They made it'll still stay bound to the original owner for 10 minutes, but will become available for everyone afterwards for 1 minute, so that the timer's a little bit longer. The crystal drops from co-op dungeon bosses and elite monsters. This one is crazy. You guys may have noticed, but I didn't know this specifically. But before, it used to be the crystals that drop in co-op dungeons were actually based on contribution. So depending on, I don't know how they calculate contribution, but there was some kind of secret hidden contribution score for your character in that party, and based on contribution, the crystal drops will be dropping there. They changed that, so now it's going to be equal chance. It's now random equal chance for all party members to get crystal drops. So if you were someone that was doing like runs of dungeons and never getting crystals, or you were someone that was always getting crystals, maybe that tells you a little bit of how well you were doing in parties before, but don't get too hung up on it. They also added in a new profile frame feature that will allow you to update, and there's some like new harvest fence. So if you wanted to see what those were, you can take a screenshot of your character and do different things that way, and then you have this nice little frame that you can add. So some new options there as well. If you really want to be able to mess around with this to create your own look of your character, you certainly can. They also moved weapon chests and armor chests over to the Sundries crafter. So if you wanted to use your Abyss currency and items to craft weapon and armor, like equipment chests, you still can, and now it's available from the Sundries crafter as well, which makes it a little bit easier depending on where you are in the area and which town you're in to be able to get there to craft these. They also added a nice quality of life for your expeditions, your mission table, where you're doing the Amatoy expeditions. They saved it so that when you finish an expedition, it will save your selection of Amatoys, so you can just run it again if you want to, or when you switch between them, it's a lot easier to get these, but just some nice quality of life for that. They made a lot of the inaccessible meats based on region a lot more accessible. So Terror Bird, Desert Wild Game, Forest Wolf, Black Pig, all of these have been moved to a more general category like chewy meat, thick meat, bland meat, bird meat. So they've made this a little bit more accessible and more broadly available as well. So if you're farming for these specific cooking options, or you're just trying to level cooking from these recipes, it's a little bit easier to get these and easier to understand where they come from as well. The next change is actually huge. They've been on this campaign to try and make random matchmaking more accessible for a lot of people. If you didn't know, in the game you can do party board to join up for dungeons. Like you can actually just do a party board to find the right dungeons, but you can also do party matchmaking just either with a specific dungeon. But then they added in the random matchmaking, which was a heavily requested feature both from multiple betas and also from release, and they finally did add it recently. So now you can just queue for a random dungeon and get some random party based on the role that you select. What they did at first was they did the party matchmaking effect. WoW does this as well, and I think Final Fantasy XIV does as well. It increases your damage done in max health, knowing that if you're going to randomly queue with random people, then you're obviously going to need a little bit of a boost because it's not going to be as coordinated as a pre-made would be. So you get a little bit of buff. They recently increased this buff, and with this patch today, you'll be able to get some nice rewards from it as well. So you'll be guaranteed to get a soul shard selection chest, and you'll have a chance at a dimensional essence salvation as well, which will help you with crafting purples at the different vendors in town. So not only are you getting a nice boost to help people, I think this is great for the game, a very healthy thing for the game. It helps the dungeons roll with party matchmaking, and as people get better gear and they also become more experienced with the game, it means completing these co-op dungeons gets easier. And this is kind of like a mentor effect where you're queuing with people that aren't yet good enough to join the gate-kept lobbies for party board. They're able to just random matchmaking, and giving incentive for people to do random matchmaking, especially when they're A, geared, or B, experienced, or both. It can help people that are just getting into the game and they're random matchmaking to get more, and you can just run this over and over and get these rewards if you complete the dungeon and open the chest at the end. They also reworked the chat screen, which was huge because it was a huge mess. It still is a huge mess, and I really hope they add more to this, but they reworked this to be a little bit cleaner. Hopefully it's easier to read and easier easier to see. And they also added the much requested custom tabs to the chat screen, which means that you can create your own custom settings for this. You can go to your chat settings and create your own different, like if you only want guild and party, or you only want world and trade, or whatever it is that you want to have in here, you can have different setups for your own custom chats that limit things, because there's definitely a lot of spam and events going off or loot that gets picked up by nearby players that can fill the chat very excessively. They also updated the Amatoi, Morph, and Guardian screens to include a note for where they come from. So if you're looking at some of these, you can see that they are acquired from Codex, acquired from Gathering. Specific ones will have different locations. Some of them will show nothing if they're from like a purchased pack or something like that. But if there are some that you can earn in game, they will now have a tooltip that will show you where they come from, the activity you have to do to get them, and also if it's a shop only item or that sort of thing. They also added a very heavily requested feature for the cooking ingredients. You can now go to cooking ingredients in game, and if you go down to view usage, you can obviously go to how to acquire to see where it comes from and where you get that ingredient. But if you're looking for what it's used in, if you to view usage, it will now show you all of the recipes that specific ingredient goes into. So if you're trying to organize your storage or just craft or cook or level up your trade skills, it'll be a lot easier to see where you can use these materials without having to go and actually start the cooking menu. And this patch came with a whole bunch of fixes, both on console and on PC, if you're looking for that. So there's a good list of these here. I don't think these are like groundbreaking, but there's some nice quality of life things based on functionality or input and controls, visibility on UI that can be cleaned up there for that. So overall, I think it's a great patch. You should definitely check out the dungeon and make sure you're logging every day to get the candy corn, and make sure you're consuming the candy corn, because you will get a good amount of the growth stones from it, as well as a chance at cosmetics and various other materials. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.